So I'm not afraid to pick up the phone, not afraid to jump in. And also, I'm not afraid to fail.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, right? Because it's never going to be perfect. It's not always going to be pretty. But if you don't jump, it's never going to happen.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so happy you are here. It is hard to believe we are already in March. Where does the time go? I am so thrilled to have the incredible Jen Tucker here joining us. Jen, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, Becky, thank you so much. It's so great to be with you. You are always so generous with your time and your community. And I've been so looking forward to this. I'm so excited for our conversation today. Can't wait.
Me too, me too. And right before I clicked record, I'm like, okay, Jen, how can I introduce you? I'm like, we can say Jen that loves donuts. Jen and I we talk over Facebook Messenger and send each other long, crazy messages and relate on all sorts of things. But also, you're an incredible brand strategist. You have such an amazing background doing so many different things. So I'm going to let you share a little bit of your story. How did you get into branding? Where are you at today? And so we can catch our audience up on how incredible you are.
You're so sweet. Oh my gosh. Well, I always start off by saying I'm literally just the nerdy girl who always has lipstick on her teeth. That's just how I roll. So if you see me and give me a little something like that if you ever see me out and there's something. But anyway, how did I get into strategy and branding? I literally dove in by the seat of my pants. I began my career writing at the Children's Museum of Indianapolis. I started off as an intern there in 1993, right after I graduated from Purdue, only because I thought, well, this would be a cool job.
Yeah.
So I secured an internship and I wormed my way literally into writing thematic units and some marketing materials for the theater there, which turned into writing teacher thematic units, which turned into designing preschool hours across all galleries of the 5 floors of fun in Indianapolis. So when I tell you that I literally feel like a grifter in this career, I'm not kidding, but also I'm not afraid to take risks and I'm not afraid to put myself out there. And I think that's been the story of my career. Fast forward to, oh goodness, maybe about 12, 13 years ago, I see a friend post something on Facebook that just says, hey, I'm looking for a writer to work on a project for a script. And I literally jumped in and said, oh, I'd love to help you. Never had I ever written a script. I had never worked in the world of videography or television. And that was the day it all changed for me, all because I wasn't afraid to, what do we say in the biz, either fake it till you make it or just jump in and
Let's do it.
swim because
Yeah.
just do it anyway, girl. Right. So that's my story. And it's led to me working in branding. I've worked with some great firms, not only on the payroll, but as a freelancer. I've had just the privilege to work as a high-end ghostwriter for clients and develop everything from scripts for commercials to some television to films for companies. And it's been a crazy ride and it's been a lot of fun. But my real passion also is not only talking about helping people with strategic branding, especially on a smaller level, or the meat and potatoes, how can I do it on a shoestring? I also love spending time at schools. I'm a teacher by trade. So anytime I can talk to kids about the world of writing and publishing, I'm all in.
Oh my gosh. See, you do it all. Literally, that's so
I
much, so much. And I love what you said about you're not afraid to take risks. Like, yeah, I'll write that script. Yeah, count me in on that project. Sign me up for that because that's where growth happens. And sometimes when we're stepping outside of our comfort zone or we're stepping out and doing things that maybe we've never done before, but we're just going to figure it out and we're going to make it happen. And I love that about you so, so much.
Yeah, I think part of it is probably being a Gen Xer. I'm not afraid to pick up the phone. I'm not afraid to just jump in and channel maybe a John Hughes movie or a character. I don't know. You can see I've got Dirty Dancing behind me because nobody puts baby in a corner. I think that there's something too with women where sometimes, especially this is true for me, so I'm not speaking for everybody. Sometimes what I found is I was so caught up and could haves that I
Yeah.
didn't spend enough time on my should haves. And so I never want to put my head on the pillow at night wishing I had done something different or with any what ifs. So, not afraid to pick up the phone, not afraid to jump in. And also, I'm not afraid to fail.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, right? Because it's never going to be perfect. It's not always going to be pretty. But if you don't jump, it's never going to happen.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so good. We could go so many different directions. And as we prepped for this, I was like, Jen, we could probably talk for 4 hours and have four different segments of this podcast in so many different areas. Okay, Jen. So let's talk a little bit about direct sales. I love that you're willing to like put yourself out there and take risks and not be afraid to fail. And I think oftentimes in direct sales, we're part of this bigger brand, right? We're working to build our personal brand. We want to shine and connect with people, but we're also kind of operating within somebody else's organization. So, any tips on how to really show up authentically as you, but also in alignment with what your company offers?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing that comes to mind for me is first, before you can have a message, you have to understand your why. And I know that's something that you cover and you talk about a lot. Why did you choose this company? Why did you decide this was the one for you? Is it because you had an experience with a product that changed your life and you have want to tell the world? Is it because you want to create an income stream that leaves a legacy for your family?
Yeah.
Is it because you have goals and ambitions and this is your real goal to get there? All of those are real whys, and your why belongs to just you and nobody else. And you don't have to have somebody else's why. But within that comes your parent brand, right? You've signed with a company, there's rules about what you can do and can't do, and you have to be very strategic about that, especially in this day and age. It's not necessarily the Wild West anymore in social media when it comes to online direct sales. For some companies, it is, but you want to make sure that you stay in good standing. My first tip is always to look through the fine print. Is there anything that was put there that you're not allowed to post or that they encourage you to post? The other thing, too, is I would look to people who are already in your company. What are they doing? What do you connect with? And is it similar to a message that you have? It doesn't have to be the same. If you find somebody who within your company is marketing in a way that appeals to you,
Yeah.
I'm not telling you to copy them verbatim, but there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. And if it's somebody who is successful, chances are it's good to fly. The other thing that I would say is you want to make sure that the authentic piece of you shines through. If you're always talking about sell, 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 product, 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 join my team, it's going to fall flat
Yeah.
because instead of leaving in servanthood or with love, you're leading with like, pick me, look at me, it's all about me, and it's not about
Mhm.
them. So when you're looking at branding, the biggest thing to me is know your why, know your boundaries within your company, and then figure out from there what your messaging is. Your messaging then should look something about a little bit about you, how the
Yeah.
products change their life, how it could change just somebody's future. And within that, you have to think about, am I really talking about me or am I talking about them, my potential customers,
Mhm.
my potential downline? What does that look like? And then create a process from there.
I love that. I love that. And I think so often one of those things that maybe holds us back from doing that or putting ourselves out there is this feeling that maybe we think what we have to share is a little boring or that their story isn't super interesting. I mean, I feel that way sometimes. I'm like, I don't know. I know people care about what we're doing on the weekends or what my kids are doing, but like, isn't really that interesting for me to post and share. Like, does anyone even really care? So anything that you would say on that to like help you really build that personal brand, help you show up and know that you're probably not that boring after all, right?
I think, Becky, you just hit it on the head right there. I think the first thing that I would want to speak to is comparison, because I think even though I said, hey, look and see what's working and what might work for you and what doesn't work for you, I think sometimes we get caught up in, oh my gosh, look at the glitziness of her reels on Instagram. Oh my goodness, look at all of her the followers. Look at how beautiful her skin shines, even on
Yeah.
the dreariest Indiana day. Not that I know anything about that. But I think we have to first get really clear about when you're looking at what you want to talk about and who you're going to reach and how you message, it has to come from a place of authenticity. I think that when it comes to posting, you might think your story is boring, but here's the thing, you don't know who you're going to connect with, and we can't
Mhm.
be everybody's cup of tea. That is a lot of work to be everything to everybody. What makes you shine to one person may not work for another. And get me, that is okay. There are people even in my line of industry who have these glitzy jobs and stories about how they fell into things. And mine is just kind of a there. But I embrace that and I love that. And it's okay that you be you. And if you're not your authentic self, it's going to come across very, very quickly, whether it's when people actually meet you or they really get a little peek inside of more of your social posting, or if they
Mhm.
spend time with you at a function or an online party or whatever the venue may be. So always lead with authenticity. And I tell this to my kids, this goes for you guys too. Don't lie. I say that because if you make things up, keep in mind there's nothing wrong with faking it till you make it. There's a big difference. But if you're making up your backstory or things about yourself, you have to have a memory. And that's really hard to
Yeah.
remember this, to keep that straight, to keep that straight, to keep this straight. Just always lead with your true self. You be you. Let your freak flag fly. I mean, and that's okay if you're not everybody's cup of tea. I'm not, and I'm down with that. And I think that just
Mm.
comes to, again, knowing your why and why you want to speak to what you want to speak about when it comes to your brand affiliation and why you chose your company.
I love that. I love that so much. And I think sometimes, we hold back because we're like, yeah, this is boring or this is weird or I don't know, like you said, wanting to be everything for everyone. And I think the reality is not everyone's going to like us. Not everyone's going to want to shop with us. Not everyone's going to want to
Mm-mm.
buy our thing. But those people that do, they want to know you for you, right? So
Yeah,
it's such an
right.
opportunity to just show up as your real self. And I think that takes practice. I think it really does. I know for a long time I was very guarded about what I shared or how I said things. I felt like everything had to be buttoned up and perfect. And the more that I'm vulnerable or kind of putting myself out there, being a little bit more bold in what I'm sharing, the more interaction I get, the more messages I get, the more sales I get, right? So I think
Yeah.
that that's kind of an opportunity to flip things around and just put yourself out there. Let me ask you this, like switching gears kind of completely here, but because I know this is something we talked about during our master class. I think oftentimes in direct sales, many are new to entrepreneurship, or maybe they're not necessarily new, but they're kind of, have been doing it for a little while and they get to a point where maybe they're feeling a bit stuck. And, it's sometimes hard to get yourself out of that funk or to get yourself unstuck and moving forward. So I'd love to hear like any examples you have of what that might look like and being stuck, and then some strategies to help us get out of the stuck or the suck. How about
Yeah,
that?
the stuck and the suck, right? Yeah, because
Yeah.
sometimes they go hand in hand. And I had such a great time when I got to spend time with your community and talk about branding, and you were so generous with that. And one of the things that I did talk about was a book that I read last year called The Science of Stuck by Britt Frank. I had picked up the book because of a project I was working on, and I stayed because it was so applicable to me and somebody that I love dearly. And so as I was reading through it, one of the things that I was really taken with is this moment in time where you have to realize two things. The first is no one is coming to save you to get unstuck. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
That's on you. And that can be the hardest thing ever is when you find that moment where you're like, this is on me to pull myself out of the suck and the stuck. The other thing is, I think we can get really comfortable there because change
Mhm.
is hard, girl.
Yeah.
Change can be scary. And doing the work to leave some of the suck behind can also be daunting and scary.
Mhm.
So, when you have these moments, you really have to think really hard, first of all, about okay, I'm going to channel my Mel Robbins today. And she's got
Yeah.
her 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's get up and we're going to get going.
Yep.
The other thing that I would say about this is when you're at that point, I think it's really important to think about the times that you weren't stuck. What were you doing? What was working for you? And how were you going about your day? How were you going about your life? Were you getting up early? Did you meditate? Did you journal? Were you walking? Were you spending the first 2 hours on your business in the morning so that you could free up time in the afternoon for girlfriends or your kids or coffee or binge watching Reacher? Not that
Yeah.
that's what I'm watching right now, but I think that we all have these times of stuck. Where
Yeah.
the rubber meets the road is when you realize that it's you who are coming to save you, that you are the one that's got to get out of it. What are the next steps? What does that look like? Sometimes it just means brushing your teeth, right? When you're really in the suck.
Mhm.
Sometimes it means that you're going to not be afraid to make those appointments or reach out to contacts or maybe reach out to your upline or somebody that you really admire who they've been through a time. I don't think we go through things in life to keep them to ourselves. I think we always go through them to help people out. When it comes to the world of marketing and advertising, there is no luxury of being stuck, right? The message has to go forward. You have to keep creating. It's a juggernaut. You have to keep going. It's this world where if you don't have a message and you're not keeping it out there, then nobody is hearing. And you can't scream into the void. It has to make sense. It has to be timely. So I think that, as you know, I know that you speak to a community of lots of diverse people, and when I
Mhm.
think about when I'm speaking as a woman to other women, just for this hot second, because we carry a lot in our lives, because we have a lot going on and a lot of demands, whatever those demands look like for you, they're not all the same for all of us. I think it can get easier to get stuck. So the
Yeah.
first thing you have to honestly do is just take a minute and take care of yourself so you can dig
Mhm.
yourself out.
Oh, so good. So good. I'm like channeling conversations I've had with my 10-year-old right now because I feel like sometimes, like even dealing as a parent with kids, like you get into this like downward spiral. And I see my 10-year-old do this a lot, right? Where something doesn't go his way. And then all of a sudden it's like, like the world is ending and everything's spiraling around me. And I'm like, you have to learn how to get yourself out of it. Like, I can't do that for you. Like, you're in control of your own emotions, and you can sit here and be sad or grumpy or mad. Or you can realize, okay, I feel better when I go take a hot shower. I feel better when I go outside and play basketball for a little bit. I feel better when I can, do this or that. And knowing those things that can help you get unstuck
Hmm.
is a tool
Hmm.
that you need in your toolkit. So I love what you said there is nobody's going to pull you out of it. Like you're going to have to put your big girl pants on and be like, okay, this is where I'm at right now. I don't love it. And I need to move forward. So, what are
Yeah.
those simple things? Like you said, brushing your teeth, or just putting one foot in front of another, or calling a friend, or venting to someone, whatever that is for you to get you on the other side of it, because it's not a good place to be, to feel like you're just spinning, right?
It's not. And I'm thinking really quick, Becky, just to touch too on the parenthood, because there are a lot of people in your community who are juggling
Right.
being their own CEO and doing the mom things. And although my children are older, they're 18 and older, I have
Yeah.
three, the way that you then change the parameters of your relationship as they get older should also be in the forefront of your mind. You kind of go from this point of being in a place of control when they're
Mhm.
little, like if you do this you get a sticker, it's bedtime, and there's the rules and we do this for a reason, 1, 2, 3, all eyes on me. Can you tell I was a teacher?
Yeah.
um but now when you think about how your relationships morph with kids, and it changes as they get older, and
Yeah.
I now find with my children, especially my daughter who's 18, I find myself when she's asking me questions, I turn those around at her and say, what do you think? Instead of
Hmm.
answering it for her. And I think that's another time, if you're spending a lot of time having other people solve the problem or answer the questions for you, you're not
Yeah.
doing the deep dive to really figure out how to get yourself where you need to be, because other people have their own roadmaps and you're supposed to follow your own. How do you get there? You have to do the work. And it's not easy and it's hard. And as a mom, we want to swoop in and we want to save them. And we're not doing them any favors if we do that. So I
Mhm.
hear you, mom to mom,
Yeah.
loud and clear.
Well, and just another parallel, we'll take it a different direction here. I mean, for any leaders that are listening today that are supporting their team, I mean, how often has somebody come to you and then just unloaded everything. Like, I'm not working my business because this happened in my family and this happened to my car. And then my life is like this. And I didn't get a chance to do that. Now my day job is demanding this. And they just unload on you. And I love that same parenting advice that you just gave. But for other people that you're supporting in the business, like, okay, let's talk about that. How do we flip that question around? Well, what do you think your next move is? And empowering them to make those choices and make those decisions to figure out how to get unstuck so they have those tools and they continue working their business and moving forward too, right?
Right, right. And I think I've learned a little bit of that from my dad. If I can give my dad a shout out, he was
Yeah.
one of the best. A daddy's girl. He's no longer here with us, but he's with me all the time. I can feel him in his
Yeah.
presence. And he was a department head at a major university for 10 years. And he would often, as a department head, have people stroll into his office, plop in the chair, and unload on him. And my dad would sit there and listen and nod and
Uh-huh.
listen and wait for them to finish. And he would say to them, are you looking for advice or are you just venting? Are you wondering what I'm thinking? Because I think so many times when we jump into rescue versus
Yeah.
asking what people really want, we're overstepping. It's kind of like that story about you hear when the kids are little and they're like, where do babies come from? And you panically tell them all where babies come from. And they're like, no, I mean, just like, how do they get home from the hospital in a car? Or, so like sometimes we just go
Yeah.
on and on when we don't need to. And then it comes back to instead of
Yeah.
helping lead people to their own answers, we're giving them our own. Yeah, I think that have just listening, it's so hard for us to just listen. Julia Cameron wrote a great book called, I think it's The Art of Listening or The Listening Path. And that was game changing for me because you can tell I'm super shy and introverted, said no one ever. Um,
Likewise.
but right, right. That's why we always find each other. But also I think that there's a fine art to listening and then knowing it's maybe not your space to talk, you're just there as a sounding board. So I think as leaders it can be really easy because you see where they're struggling, you know how you can help them, and you just want to jump in, not
Yeah.
because you're busy and you care about them, but then you're
Mhm.
moving on to the next thing, and that's not a bad thing. That's just life. We're all juggling multiple things.
Yeah.
And I think it's really about taking the time to slow down and seeing if you can help lead them just by listening and turning it
Mhm.
around on them. So I would say if someone says, you know, I'm having trouble posting. Well, tell me more about that. Well, I'm posting on Instagram 3 times a day and I'm not getting any traction. Well, tell me about what you're posting. So if you can keep probing a little further and a little further, and by the time you get there, it might be, something like that you can really help them, or maybe you've
Yeah.
led them to see where they can make the shift themselves and you didn't have to do it for them.
Isn't that the best? That's the best way. I totally agree. And I ended so many calls with students that I have just asking, like, is there anything you need from me? How can I best support you? And oftentimes the answer is like, no, I'm good. Like I don't need anything, but we needed to have this call for me to talk through things and process
Yeah.
and come to where I need to be. But ultimately, like, you don't need me to send you a course training on that. You don't need me to send you an article on that. I mean, sometimes there's resources for follow up, but a lot of I'm not going to go solve your family dynamics or your car problems or your, house that needs to get cleaned. Like, nope, like I don't really need that. I'm just coming here to like lay it all out for you. Okay.
Yeah, I think my husband and I were married for probably a good 20 years because obviously I was just a tiny child bride when we got married. I'm not
Yeah.
54, said no one
Yeah.
ever. But it's been in the last few years that he's learned I don't need him to solve it for me. I just want him to listen. And I think
Listen.
that that's
Yeah.
something, I think that's really something that leaders can add to their quiver, their tool belt of what they can do
Yeah.
for people. I think that's really critical. And not just people on your team, but the people around you. I think that making people feel seen is a lost art. And if we can just do that by listening and giving them our attention
Uh,
before we jump in or move on, I think that you could make big differences in someone's world that you have no idea that you've made an impact.
so good, Jen. So good. And I like want to keep talking for another 4 hours. So I'm just gonna we're gonna get to the outro. So I gotta know, just for fun, what your favorite office supply is, and then you gotta tell us where to connect with you because I know everyone
Oh,
listening right now is gonna need a little bit of Jen in their life.
so I'm already laughing because if you dropped me in a Staples or a, Office Depot, you
Yeah.
will find Jen Tucker in the pen supply aisle. I will stand there all day. I will behold the Sharpies and the highlighters and the Bic, point zero 0.05 black pens. I mean, I can't get, I mean, Becky, like for crying out loud, this is on my
Oh,
desk.
I mean, it
Hello
even
to
has a
all,
handle, and I think it's color coded. Is that color coded?
allegedly. Yeah, and that's just on the desk.
Right.
You can't see the man behind the curtain and all the pens over there and in there and inside the desk. So I
I
would
love that.
say whether it's a Sharpie or a really amazing highlighter, or give me a good black gel ink pen that's going to write all day long as if I'm an astronaut in space and never go out on me.
Hmm.
That's a good day
A
for
good
me.
pen
Yeah.
is life
Yeah.
changing. I agree.
Oh,
I'm right there with you. That's why
right.
we're fast friends.
I know, exactly, exactly. You could be purple and you could be pink, but I'll take a good black pen any
I love
day.
it. I love
Solves a
it.
multitude of
So good.
problems. And this has been so much fun. And I would love to continue the conversation for
Yeah.
anybody in your community who wants to connect with me. You can find me on Instagram at Jen Tucker Writer. On Facebook, I'm there as author Jen Tucker. And where else can you find me? That's really pretty much where I hang out, although you can find me on YouTube and Threads if you really, really want to stalk me. But the main places I hang out are on IG and Facebook. You can also, if you have any questions, we'd love to help you at Jen Tucker Writer. And you can reach out to us at info@jentuckerwriter.com. We'd love to help you.
Amazing. Okay, and Jen, you mentioned you have something special for our listeners. They're in for a treat. Tell us
I
more.
do. I do. I do. Your community is one of my favorite to spend time with. So, what I'd love to do is for one of the listeners today, if you reach out to me at info@jentuckerwriter.com, send me a little email. Tell me about your brand, what's working for you, what you think might not be, or if you just want a strategy session, I'm going to give away one 30-minute strategy session to one of your listeners. And I'm going to keep that window open for a week after the podcast drops. But again, send me an email at info@jentuckerwriter.com and let's get together and figure out how I can help you make your brand shine. But also at the end of those 30 minutes, I want to help you walk away with something tactical that you can put into use right away and tailor made just for you and your business.
Oh
So
my gosh, you're so
reach out.
generous. So
I'm
amazing.
excited. I'm excited.
So good. Thank you for being here today. You are incredible. Loved our conversation and every direction that we went with it. Thank you for all you do and showing up and spending time with us here today, not only in the academy with our masterclass, but here on the podcast too. So I appreciate you, Jen.
Oh, I appreciate you, Becky. You are a gem to so many people, and you're real and authentic, and your community is really lucky to have you at the helm. Thank you for being so dear to me. Thank you for being my favorite voice message buddy on Messenger. Like we have the best
Anytime.
time. So yeah, I appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Jen.
You're welcome.
This episode is sponsored by CinchShare. CinchShare is the #1 social media scheduler for direct sellers and loved by creators in any industry. It's truly your one-stop shop for all things social. Join hundreds of thousands of social sellers and entrepreneurs who turn to CinchShare for free social media training and resources. Get started today with your free 30-day trial at moderndirectseller.com/CinchShare.